Hello, this is Jack, and this is the final video for my Unity project. So, from the last video to now, I kind of restarted my project because I deleted everything on my computer by accident. But anyways, this is CubeRacer. I made it with inspiration from a YouTube tutorial by Brackies, but I just improved upon it and added my own twist. So the basic game from Brackies is just a normal game of cube racing like this, where you just go and dodge obstacles. But I added parts of the UI, difficulty selection, as well as different numbers of lives and infinite pathway generation, as well as random obstacles, which we'll see later. So I'll start with medium because that's the only one that I can play with, because hard is very hard. And we'll do 20 lives. So as you can see, every time you crash you lose points, and if you're not on infinite mode you also lose lives. Yeah, as you can see there, when you crash it kind of auto straightens itself so that you still move straight. It's just something that I added because I thought it'd be cool. And yeah, this is the entire game. You just keep going, the track never ends because I made it so it continuously generates itself over and over again. So yep, that's it. And yeah, as you can see, when you select a different difficulty it gets slower and the path gets wider, so it's easier to play with. And with hard here it adds in slip, so it's harder to control. It's just there's a lot of slip on the ground. Yeah. Alright, okay. I also added it onto a website. I built it with WebGL instead of standalone because I wanted to be able to play it without having to launch it or install the game. So onto the Unity part. This is the menu. As you can see, there's buttons here that does things. They each do things. Here is the game itself. So I'm gonna just demonstrate the infinite pathway real quick. Actually, no, I can't. I will need to select it to infinite mode. As you can see there, the cube just keeps going, and then once it reaches a certain point, the pathway will despawn and then move forwards. Okay. Yep. And the obstacles just respawn by themselves once the cube passes. And yeah. What else is there? Oh, the code. So this is I'll just go in order. This is the camera follow to make it so that when the cube falls off the game, the camera doesn't spin with the cube, it just kind of follows it, so that you can still see the cube falling. It's just, yeah, the camera doesn't spin or rotate as the cube is rotating. So that's why I have the camera follow. This is the credits page that just loads the scene. This is where I keep the data that I need to store between classes, so the game mode that they used, how many lives they have, and the difficulty that the player selected. This is to destroy the fragments of the obstacles when you collide into them, which I can show here, right there. So if I can show the cube, once it crashes, the obstacles just kind of disappear because they get destroyed by that code there. So once it crashes, those obstacles in the back disappear so they don't take up any resources. And you can see more of the infinite pathway generation here, where it just keeps going and going. It just keeps spawning new obstacles. The obstacle spawning will look better once it goes over here, there. It just spawns a new set of obstacles. This is to show the difficulty in the top left when the player plays the game. So right there, the difficulty. This makes the fragments explode, so it spawns them and then explodes them, so that it looks cool. It looks like an actual collision. This is the game manager that controls the UI, the lives. Actually, it mainly just controls the UI. So the scores, what difficulty it is. It sets the difficulty of the game itself when the game starts, and then ends the game when the game ends. This is what I use to make the infinite pathway. So I have the length of the ground. Once the player passes a certain point, it spawns itself, it moves itself forward, and then spawns the obstacles, which is here in obstacle spawner. So the obstacle spawner is just based on a set of prefabs. So just based on this set of 5 prefabs or 6 prefabs here, and in a list, and it just randomly selects an obstacle, places them at a spawn point. Yep. Here is where I control lives, the deduct lives. This is to start the game, so this is the main menu screen, where if the player clicks a button, it just calls one of these methods to start it. So if it clicks easy, it sets the difficulty to easy, medium difficulty, stuff like that. It opens the credits and selects the amount of lives. This is to display the score at the top when you're playing, which I think you already saw, but that right there is controlled by this. This is the score itself, and it updates based on the position of the player on the, I think, z-axis, which is the direction of going forward. I divided the number by 10 so that it actually like moves slowly and you can see it instead of just it going up extremely fast. So that's why I divide by 10 there. And when it collides, it removes points. This is to restart the game once the player dies. So once they die, you can click play again and keep playing infinitely. And finally, the player controller. So this is what controls the game itself. The player movement is done using a rigid body instead of a transform, because I wanted it to have like acceleration or like drag in case of like I want it to have slip in the case where you're playing difficulty hard. So it's not like instantaneous movement, which is what I don't want. So it moves based on adding force onto the player. So there's a constant forwards force, and the forwards force is capped based on a speed limit so that it doesn't go infinitely, and the speed limit is determined by the difficulty of the game. This is to rotate it back when you, which I showed earlier, like when you collide, it rotates it back to the original 0-0 position. And this is to stop the game once the player falls off the edge, as you see there. And this is just moving the horizontal. The main control is this line of code right here. This is the thing to end the game. So once active is false, or once it falls off, it starts the coroutine to end game, which calls game over in the game manager. This is the update method, which which constantly checks if the player has no lives left, and if they have no lives left, then it ends the game as well. Here's the spin, because when the player falls off, I wanted it to have some sort of spin so that it looked cool. So this is what it's doing, a random spin based on by adding torque to a constant force component. So every time the player just falls off, because sometimes when the player falls off they don't actually spin, so it just adds an artificial spin to make it look cooler. And this is the collision. Once it collides with an obstacle, it creates the fragments, the shatter prefab. Creates the shatter prefab here, which kind of just explodes and then destroys the obstacle itself so that the player can just keep going straight through, and then deducts lives. And this is the difficulty selection, where I just set certain components of the game. So easy, there's a 50 speed limit with mass and drag. At medium, there's less drag and less mass with a high speed limit, and hard, there's nearly no drag and with a even higher speed limit. So that's pretty much it. I can also show the website. So I built the game with WebGL, which gives you kind of a build and an HTML file. So I just used HTML to format that to my own website, format like the links and everything to my own website, and then just added the game into it so that the game is positioned, for one, positioned correctly in the game, and also playable and viewable within the website itself. So you can see here, like, it actually just moves, everything works, and it just loads the game when you want. There's a full screen button to play full screen, and yeah, that's all there is. Here's the link to the website if you want to play it.